Hey, welcome back to the X Podcast. You're listening here with Russ Moore and Tim Moore back at the round table.
Related?
The Knights table. We're not related. Different last name, same mission. Whoa. Same name, different. No. Different. I don't know. Okay. All right. Hey, we.
Knights of the Round Table. That's what the new podcast is called. Knights of the Round Table.
We got time for an appetizo.
Appetizer?
An appetizo. This is going to be more of a brief podcast than usual. This is a tapa. I'm missing Spain, so we're going to have a couple tapas.
Oh, my goodness.
Have a little tapas. I asked somebody, actually somebody texted in a bunch of questions, and there's no way we're going to get through all of them. But you know what? We're just going to use some of them as starting points and see if they go anywhere good. So the tapas are on the table. Are you ready?
Yeah. This might be a fast-forward episode.
Okay. Our first tapa. And it is not bacon-wrapped dates with manchego cheese and romesco sauce to dip.
Thank goodness.
Although that would
that
be
sounds
incredible.
awful.
Oof, so good. Barcelona, bring us
Bacon-wrapped
back.
dates?
Oh, they're
With
so
cheese on them?
good. Bacon-wrapped dates stuffed with manchego cheese with a romesco sauce to dip. Life doesn't get sweeter than that. Are you ready?
It'd be a hard thing for me to eat that, but
All
I
right.
do it to do hard things.
Most influential books podcast of the last year. We'll hit that some other time.
Oh.
A day in the life of your PT. Is that?
I say we go in day in the life of Russ because mine's not that exciting. What do you want to know?
I don't think anybody would care about the day in life of me. What do you?
I don't know why anybody would care about. Okay, so we can do it quick.
I mean, people. I think if you listen to the podcast, you know I spend a disordinate amount of time in this city. I'm in. If you're familiar with, Central Ohio, Columbus.
I'm the same thing with bed.
I'm in German Village. What?
You do the same thing with your bed.
My bed?
Spend a disordinate amount of time in your bed.
That's not true. Not enough.
Okay.
But I'm in German Village a lot. I'm in the city a lot.
All this in one day?
Sometimes, yeah. I don't know.
What day? I guess that'd be the question. What day are we talking about? If we're talking about a weekday, are we talking about a weekend day?
I mean,
a Sunday?
A basic weekday for me is I get up around 6:30, and I have my morning rhythm, my morning playlist, devotions, journal, pray, all that stuff. I make breakfast right now. My breakfast of choice is Ezekiel bread toasted with avocado spray, 1 egg with egg whites mixed in, and sliced avocado. So it's like avocado toast with egg white mixture with Ezekiel sprouted grain bread.
Are you doing this every day?
Every single day with a pour-over coffee. So that's my breakfast. If I get up in time, my goal right now is to get an hour of writing before work. I'm usually at the office by
10:30, 11?
No. By 9. On Wednesdays, 8 o'clock to meet you.
Yeah.
And then at work till usually around 5, and usually drive straight from there to go to the gym, where I'm there for about,
7 hours?
Yeah, no, I mean, I do have a good community there, so if I don't have anything afterwards, I spend longer there than I need to, a couple hours, and that's, a little bit of weights, a little bit of cardio, a little bit of sauna, and then, I might have a dinner. Last night I got, why are you laughing?
I was going to say a lot sauna.
Yeah, a lot
A little
sauna.
Bit of weights, a little bit of cardio, a lot sauna.
And then depending, last night I had a dinner, so I drove straight from the gym to a dinner in Lancaster. A lot of times, if not, I'll either drive to Easton and hang out at North Star, where I'll read, write, work on stuff, whatever. Or the last few months have been a lot of times at German Village. I'll drive straight from the gym to German Village, and I'll walk around Schiller Park at sunset, and then get back around 10 o'clock, maybe watch some Ted Lasso until I fall asleep while I have some Apolos herbal spirit mixed in with some LaCroix for relaxation. What about you?
Wow.
That's a weekday in the life for us.
That's a lot. You're on the go the whole time. You are.
Go.
I usually try to get up early.
Yeah.
And usually try to do my morning routine. I'm same way. I'm a very routine person. So reading the Bible, prayer, journal. I don't journal every day. Some seasons I do it a lot more than others. Just depends. Take care of the pets.
Oh, let me tell you something. Your dog looked dead on Monday.
My dog's close to dead.
Or Saturday.
Yeah, my dog's getting close to it.
Oh, Harley was just splattered out on the floor, not moving.
Yeah, he's at the end of life. We're at palliative care.
Oh no, poor Harley.
We're in palliative care. That's the way I'm describing it. No one said that, but anyways. So it feels like take care of the pets, do all that stuff. I'm usually at the prep. Get out of the house. I go to the gym next.
Okay.
So I go to the gym early in the morning. I go to the gym in the morning early. I like to work out first, cardio, weights, get done with that. Then I go and get a shower. I'm at work then. And so from work, I'm usually head down unless we have meetings trying to do sermon prep or if we have meetings or whatever it might be throughout the day. That's usually goes there. I go home 5-ish, sometimes before, sometimes after. Go home. And then a lot of times it just kind of really depends on our evening rhythm, what we're doing, at home. We go home, whether it's making dinner. Lately, it's been trying to prepare for grad party, so it just feels like every evening has been, it's mow the grass. I mean, I'm doing a lot of house stuff at times, not every night, but, mowing the grass, and this season has been like mulching the beds and,
fun stuff.
I have to take care of the homestead.
Okay.
And so I was doing that, and then a lot of times it's been basketball season, so every single night of the playoffs had basketball games on. So I will probably have a basketball game on at night while my wife is reading because she hates basketball, but she reads and loves to read. Yeah, and so I watch basketball.
There you go. Yeah,
go to bed.
You can let us know, right?
Pretty exciting.
If that's too much or too little.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to the next one.
Yours is more exciting, I will say.
I don't know.
Mine's not as exciting.
My weekends are fun for me.
Yeah.
Okay. This person wrote in next. Anything around writing? In the vein of like how you guys stay inspired, what you do to overcome mental blocks.
What do you do to overcome mental blocks? I'll go first when it comes to mental blocks.
Okay.
Mental blocks are not allowed.
What does that mean?
I don't see. Yes, there are times when I have mental blocks. They are some of the most frustrating. And my writing might be writing a book. It might be writing a sermon. Because every week when I write my sermons, they're the length of a chapter of a book. I actually write them all out. And so, it is frustrating when there's a mental block. It's more frustrating for me when it's writing a message and I have a mental block because I have a deadline.
Yep.
I have an internal deadline Thursday and I have a deadline on Sunday. So that's a little bit harder for me than in a book. But I'm the type that it's like you sit at it and you fight at it until you get past it.
Yep.
I don't have any special techniques. Like even if I'm writing a book, like I stay in the chapter. It's almost like I stay in a fight until I get something. And a lot of times it will come from writing poorly.
Yes.
I guess what it is that if I'm so frustrated I can't write anything, sometimes I'll just start writing anything.
Yes.
And it's not good.
Yes.
And I'll go back and really clean it up later when I'm in a better mental space.
Yes.
But there are times when I'm trying to write where I'll go back and I feel like I'll spend 45 minutes to an hour and I maybe got a paragraph. And it's frustrating. Yeah. But I guess what it is, I just don't give up. I just keep going. I got one paragraph. I come back at it again the next day. And so I don't have any, I don't know if you do. I don't have any special, step away. I go outside and run a mile, come back, boom. I just literally sit there and I struggle until I get something on paper.
Yep.
It's not a good answer, but.
No, it's true. I'll ramble off a few things. I think number one, in general, one of the ways you stay inspired, because that's part of the question, is, Chad Veach is very, very big on this. The quality of what you contribute is going to be directly proportional to the quality of what you consume. Yeah. So, the podcasts that you listen to, the books that you read, the thoughts that you think, the people you're around, your relationship with God in a spiritual sense, like the substance that you are building inside of you. For me, my weird thing when it comes to preaching messages, my struggle is not what am I going to put in, but what am I going to take out? Yeah. What am I going to take out? And so I think part of, when you're creating is just making sure you stay full so that whatever you're doing is an overflow. That doesn't mean that you won't come against mental block, but as much as possible, make sure you're staying full through being around inspiring people and consuming inspiring content and being around inspiring environments and places and being outside when you can. Exercising gets your brain jogging. All those things are going to help the inspirational process. Getting away from time to time. Yeah. Mark Batterson, a different place, and a different pace, a different perspective. Get away from vacation, travel, all those things. So consume inspiration to produce inspiration. And then second, I think what you said, I love. Stephen Furtick has talked about embrace the sucky starts. So he talked about for him, there are times for me when a message, like the message before last, the message I did in, I think it was March, Miracle Worker.
Yeah.
That was a message that I felt like came down out of heaven for me. 1 out of every 10 is like that.
Yeah.
But this past one was the other one, which is more like I'm digging. I'm digging through a lot of dirt. I am digging, and like you said, it's frustrating, but it's also confidence building. The more you do it, the more there's that confidence that I'm going to keep hitting a wall, but I've done this enough to trust that if I keep staring at the wall and hitting the wall, eventually I'm going to break through the wall.
Yeah.
And so that's what you kind of have to have that confidence of, I'm in the middle of writing a second book, and the confidence this side around is if I just show up, eventually the words will come. If I just show up, eventually the words will come. Yep. I've got to write, in the words of Anne Lamott, she uses a different word, but crappy first drafts.
An SFD.
Yes, an SFD, a crappy first draft. And,
CFD.
And you got to be okay with it.
Yeah.
And you got to be okay to know, one of the people we listen to says very similarly, he doesn't believe in mental blocks. He just believes that we don't like anything we have to say.
Yeah.
And so you just have to write, like you said, poorly until the good words come.
Yeah.
And so I think that's part of it. For me, on a very practical level, I feel like my mental block breakthroughs come when walking or running. There's an old quote I heard about C.S. Lewis I love that said that C.S. Lewis's writing style is that he'd write 15 minutes, then walk 15 minutes. Write 15 minutes, walk 15 minutes. And that was great for me around COVID because I would write forever, take one lap around the apartment, and every single time it was without fail. While I was walking around the apartment, sentences would come, breakthroughs would come, and same thing with messages. I'll be working on a message for days, go through a run around the park, and while I'm running, oh my gosh, mental blocks will begin to break down, things will clarify, dots will connect, lines will come together, and it always happens. There's something about engaging, which, by the way, this is another reason I think the Sabbath is so powerful. Someone texted me yesterday about Sabbath, a soul day, and was asking, what do I do? And I told them the piece of advice I heard Matt Chandler say one time, that if during the week you work with your hands, on your soul day, work with your mind. And if during the week you work with your mind, on your soul day, work with your hands. When you engage the opposite part of your body or your physiology, it has a way of breaking loose the other side. And it has a way of replenishing the other side.
I love it.
And so those are a few things.
Yeah.
And I just think, again, getting around inspiration.
I think one of the things that inspires me, so for example, just even in a process where I'm trying to write right now, one of the things that was really inspiring to me, and it usually is totally unrelated to what I'm actually writing about, but I just listened to the Anne Lamott's book that you told me. You were like, have you read Bird by Bird by Anne Lamott? And I was like, no. And she's like, it's a book on writing. And it's kind of, I don't know how you'd even describe
it's memoirish.
Memoirish. It's kind of whimsical. It's kind of like, it's just her approach to it. And, but as she would talk about things, it would just kind of like, I don't know why, but it would get it would whet my appetite.
Yep.
Like just hearing her talk about writing bad first drafts and hearing her talk about, character development, hear her talk about these different things and different anecdotes and would get my mind going. It's like, oh, I'm itching to write. I'm itching to write. Like, so I think that it does really help. I agree 100% with what you said. Consuming, for your mind is huge.
And honestly, we kind of talk about this a little bit more on the mental health side, but having fun.
Yeah.
Taking a break and having fun. Yeah. And recreating through recreation, just breaking up the stiffness of your soul by going out and playing some pickleball or laughing with your friends. Like, sometimes you just need that reset.
Change of environment helps me sometimes. Like, I have one place that I tend to write a lot, but when I, move to, outside or sitting in a outdoor space or something like that, sometimes that. Yeah. And so I think those are all really good practical things, but I feel like changing your environment really does help sometimes.
And I'll say one thing I've been doing more often this past time writing that's helped is knowing, three things. Knowing, number one, the time of day you're most creative.
Yep.
And going with that. Knowing your green zone, as Carey Nieuwhof would say. Number two, keeping distractions completely away. So there are days, I did this on Memorial Day. I put my phone on airplane mode the night before and told myself I couldn't take it off until I finished a certain amount of words the next day.
Ooh.
So my phone stayed on airplane mode until I finished.
Oh,
an
I
amount of
like
words.
that. Mm-hmm. You disciplined yourself.
Yep. And this is just, this is the nerdy side. We talk about the physiological effects of things. I bought a fresh bottle of nootropics, which are simply chemicals for your brain, natural, that there's different types of nootropics you can get for focus.
Oh, you were telling me
energy.
about that, how you smoke those, and they really...
No.
Oh, that was something else.
That's
Oh,
something
okay.
else. Yeah.
People might not know we're sarcastic at times.
Yeah. No. We could. Yeah. Anyways,
Okay.
but
We're gonna do
nootropics are
another
great.
episode someday
are.
to talk about your mushrooms.
Yes.
Let's go.
Yes, we should. We should. We should.
Okay.
We'll leave you hanging with that mystery.
Yeah. Next.
But okay. All right. So next, let's see here. What else we got? A lot of. Okay. Lean more into a conversation around the things that refill you. We talked a little bit about that. He said him and his wife every so often will pause from TV on the couch, because that doesn't build or refill their relationship. It's the same. So, yeah. What personal things refill us? We've talked about this a lot, I feel like, but I mean, for me, being around life-giving company refills me.
Yeah.
Laughing around the people I enjoy refills me. Sometimes a good night's sleep that I didn't realize I needed completely refills me. Reinvigorating work. I mean, a lot of times if I can get in the zone and get good work knocked out earlier in the day, writing, ministry work, if I feel like I can be productive the first part of the day, that really does something. Staying in shape physically, eating well, spiritually connecting with God in a rich way. I mean,
Hanging out with friends.
Yes.
I think, believe it or not, I know it's kind of a work day for us, and I don't know how people feel about it when they come, but as draining as Sunday is, for me, it's also massively refilling.
Yes.
Even though, whether I'm speaking or not, it doesn't matter. Like when I'm not at church, I miss church.
Yes.
When I'm not speaking, I'm still at church.
Yeah.
Like I don't just come to preach or whatever it is, but I love the environment. I love the worship atmosphere. I love being able to engage in that. I love hanging out with people out in our lobby, the foyer, and just being able to connect with people.
Yep.
I mean, I'm just such a man. I love it. It refills me. I mean, I don't know.
It's true.
I mean, it's a huge piece of what refills.
It's so true.
And so I think going out, one of the things that my wife and I got into a rhythm of doing, and it's been a little more chaotic as of late, but we had one day that was set aside, and again, when you have kids, but then they're kind of involved in other things, we had one day, Fridays, that was just kind of like, we don't make plans to do other things, and so it's kind of, what do you want to do today? Hey, let's go to Easton, and let's go to lunch here, and let's go to these places, and let's go to even if it's going to at-home store, and it's going to this, whatever, but just kind of palling around and being able to do stuff without much of an agenda and not having it, like, sometimes it's almost that slowing, for us, almost slowing pace down.
Yes.
I think is that, and even like Memorial Day, going over to our friend's house, that's
so
I wasn't
fulfilling.
feeling good because I'd been kind of getting over sickness now, and I wasn't feeling it that morning, but I was like, but the moment, I think I texted you that, you're like, how you feeling? You said, well, I was like, well, I wasn't feeling great today. The moment I get around people, it energizes me. We're out there playing pickleball in the sun. Doesn't matter. Like, I just love being around. Those are some of my favorite days. Is when we could just go hang out.
It's so
hanging out by their
refilling.
pool, just a bunch of us, because we're all of us that work together are really close friends, and we're like family and community. And so hanging out, just chilling, sitting in chairs, just talking about anything and everything. Playing
That's fun.
pickleball, hanging out. To me, that is like, that's near the top of my list of just regular, like, how can you go have fun and refill me? That's so good.
So fun.
Yeah.
I mentioned it. I love walks. Walks refill me. Traveling refills me. The city refills me. All right. Let's see. Spiritually, what you guys do when maybe you feel like you're in a slump and just need a fresh breath in your lungs.
That's good. Well, I mean, I feel like this is kind of like a lot of the other things. I think sometimes a change really helps, kind of, because and this is maybe more me than others. I'm so rhythm and routine oriented that sometimes it can feel kind of rhythm, mundane, or you know what I mean, like,
Yeah.
and not have a lot of life in it. And so for me, I think I have to at times break up my routine. I'm so routine
Yeah.
that sometimes changing my routine,
Yeah.
changing what I do
Yeah.
in my routine is really helpful for me. So I think that's good. I also think that for me, if I ever feel spiritually, I don't know, dry is maybe the term, the one thing that tends to bring me, bring a sense of refreshing more than anything else is worship music and worship atmosphere.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, there's just something about an atmosphere like that that probably reinvigorates my soul
Yeah.
more than anything else.
Yep. No, that's
So
good.
I really have to be intentional about whether it's what am I choosing to listen to. Like, and I could be listening to a podcast, could be listening to a book, could be listening to this. Do I need to actually stick on some worship music while I'm working, while I'm doing something, and get
Yeah.
lost in, you know what I mean, those kind of moments. And
Yeah. No, it's good. I think, yeah. Probably very similarly, I think breaking up your routine, which that statement presupposes you have a routine.
yes.
Which is really important.
if you don't have a routine, you're always going to feel that way.
I think a really important thing, I was thinking about this the other day, I think a really important thing in your spiritual health is to find that right mixture and balance of desire and discipline. Like if you're going to be somebody that goes to the gym a lot, probably because you eventually enjoy it,
Yeah.
and you go because you enjoy it. And if you don't enjoy it, long term, you're not going to stick with it. But if you also don't bring discipline along to that and go on the days you don't feel like it,
Right.
same thing with your spiritual walk. There's got to be a rhythm with God if
Yeah.
you're ever going to grow and make ground with God. There's got to be a rhythm, a daily rhythm of enjoying and meeting with God. But I've given myself more and more permission. Like I think you and I do the same plan. As there's a 5-day reading plan.
Yeah.
I have it in front of me every single morning, but I've given myself permission to not follow it perfectly.
Yeah.
I've given myself permission to say, you know what, I have it in front of me. Because I use a highlighter to highlight off. But if there's a psalm that just really, I'm like,
Yeah.
I won't highlight it off. I'll instead of, even though I read it, I'll leave it, and maybe the next morning I'll just go back and reread that again. And this morning is actually an example. This morning is usually I'll sit down, I have my playlist going, I pour over coffee, my kettle going, I'll have my coffee, open my Bible, I have the highlighter, I have my plan in front of me. But this morning I closed it back up, and I was just like, if I get to it, I get to it. God, let's just talk. And I just, before I even went into my normal routine, just had a friend-to-friend conversation with God, and it was so refreshing. And just talked to God about what was on my heart, talked to God, and just enjoyed talking to God. And then went and actually read 3 different Psalms and didn't stick to the plan at all.
Yeah,
I think you give yourself permission to do that. I'm looking forward to, I guess the weather's probably there. I can do this again. But last summer, I loved when warmer weather hit, starting to do my devotions outside.
Yeah.
And take a table, chair outside. I think walks with God are super invigorating.
Yeah.
To take a prayer,
That makes a big difference
leave your
for me.
phone inside and just do a walk and just
Yeah.
talk to God. That can be huge. I think shaking things up, like you said, there are seasons when and part of it's my profession, but part of it's my passion, is I'll listen to messages all the time. There have been some seasons where I've just cut out listening to messages just because I'm like, I have too much noise.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to spend more time in the quiet, more time just actually praying, more time actually talking to God.
Yeah.
Then there's other times where I need a timely message that can provoke me.
Yep.
Or I tell you what, I don't know about you, but for me, and maybe this is just the nature of some of my friendships, like with my buddy Logan, sometimes the thing that refreshes me more than anything is that incredible, refilling, life-giving spiritual conversation.
Yeah.
Me and Logan have some of the best, just
Love it.
honest, raw conversations with God. We know how to speak to each other's spirit. We know how to, and sometimes, a good one of those, to be honest, can last me for days, for weeks. That's huge. I think this is a really spiritual one that I don't do often enough. But one of the most proven biblical ways to resharpen your dull spiritual senses is fasting. That if you're not sensing God's presence, you're feeling dull, you're kind of feeling whatever, is to actually go on a fast. I don't do that enough. I'll just be honest. I could do that way more often.
I only do it 3 days a week.
You only do it 3 days a week. Dang, I was beating myself up
I'm
over
just
4.
kidding. All right. The one-up game.
Yeah.
Those are great. Those are some great suggestions. I agree.
Um,
Go walk and pray.
Yeah.
If your prayer life feels stale,
Yep.
go walk and pray. I think those are my most invigorated conversations with God ever. Is when I'm walking.
Okay. This one you laughed at. I kind of laughed at. Write us in. If I don't get at least 3 emails of this, then we're not going to do it. But this person wrote in and said a Coffee with Russ episode would be fire when you talk all about coffee.
Why? Why would that be fire?
That would be the fires of hell for you.
This bean tastes like this. Have you noticed how brown these beans are? Man, the aroma from this one is just thick.
There's a bunch of these. There's some more. We'll go into it some other time,
yeah.
but we're running out of time. Before we wrap up, it's been a little appetizer for you. We had a few different tapas that we tried. Do you have anything else you'd like to add or ask before we end?
Add or ask? I get
know.
to ask you a question
Well,
about anything? What are we talking?
I don't know why I said that.
I don't know. No, I think those are. I don't know. We addressed his questions. I don't think they're that fascinating. I think sometimes because of our role, people can have a tendency to think our life is more fascinating than it is. Yours might be. But I think one of the things that you probably will find more with maybe leaders is their life may not be more fascinating, but it might be more consistent.
It's true. John Maxwell said his life is boring if you look at it.
And that's what I mean. I think a lot of times my life is boring. I think my thoughts aren't boring. But I think my life might be boring. so I think I am a creature that really tends to lean toward routine. That is both good and bad. It's a double-edged sword. There's
more than me. I'm very routine, but I'm also value spontaneity.
I'm so routine that even breaking out of my routine to say I'm not going to do my scheduled reading plan and just do something else almost feels like a violation. It almost, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I'm just so routine on it, but I actually think it's great that you don't. Like I need to do that more because I think there's times when I feel like a lot of times I get something out of it. And I don't always have my notes because one of the things I started doing, I used to do this a long time ago, but when I'd have notes and thoughts from reading a scripture, I would track out my phone. The last 2 years, I've actually tried to do more writing at my Bible.
That's good.
So a lot of times we get there and go, what's God saying to you? It's like, well, if you give me a second, let me go grab my Bible. I promise you I can find it because there are so many things that are just will jump out at me and stand out at me, and I'll underline them and I'll write down like this speaks to this or whatever. But I've tried to do more of sticking that in my Bible because I feel like when I'm back in front of my Bible and I have it open again, I want to see those moments. Yeah. And sometimes it's always cool. One thing that is a benefit of reading the Bible over and over every year is that I'm going through some chapters. I just finished 2 Samuel, and I'm going through these chapters and I'll see what I underlined the year before.
Yep.
And I'm always like, oh,
cool.
That grabbed my attention. Or I put a question mark next to
Which
this
is really
line.
cool. But on the flip side, I just thought of something else to
that?
answer his question.
What's that?
Something I'm doing this year, I've mentioned it, I think, before on this podcast, is switch up the translation you read in.
Yeah.
So read Burning in My Bones by Eugene Peterson last year. He's the author of the Message paraphrase. So I decided this year my daily reading is in the Message, which just gives a fresh, interesting take on, sometimes reading the same translation can get stale.
Yeah.
And so, that's another thing. And also, reading a really good spiritual book or biography has a way of refreshing you and provoking you.
I agree. I think those are all great. I think sometimes it's the answer, almost the cliche Christian answer is you need to just read your Bible and pray. But I'll be honest. And maybe it's because, again, this is not like one of those fake humble brags. Like I've been walking with Jesus for a long time, and that was a practice. Reading through the Bible in a year was a practice I started when I was like 18. So I've done it years, decades, and so it's so routine. But there's always nuggets I get out of it. However, I will find just as much as a supplement. I don't replace. I don't not do that.
Right.
But reading something that is inspiring, reading a a Christian, a book that, a nonfiction book that really speaks to my soul will do just as much sometimes in one season of like putting a fire under me.
Yep.
And so I think sometimes we've got this really small, narrow box that, we apply spiritually, and we just go, well, these are the few traditional practices that have been said down millennia, so this is what it is, and go, wait, there are other things that actually inspire me and fuel my relationship with God. And a lot has to do with, with thinking. A lot has to do with my mind, concepts. One of the things that I learned, it was a book by Gary Pathway, a book called Pathways by, what was it, Gary? I can't remember his last name. Again, odd book, but, one of the things that opened my mind to is just realizing that everybody is wired differently, and the way they connect with God is different. And so realizing that for me, revelation makes me feel closest to God. So when there is an idea, a concept, there's something new that gets revealed to me, whether it's in reading a passage and something just highlighting and speaking to me. Now, sometimes it speaks to a current situation, but even just if it's a revelation about God that I never knew, if there's some new perspective that I've never thought about in regards to my faith, that electrifies me. And it gets my mind going. And there's something about the way when my mind begins to think it over and over and ruminate on that idea or that concept of God, God gets bigger. And I feel actually closer to him. It's weird. I don't know. Good. It's not like feeling, it's not bumps and being in a worship experience, but there's something about it that just is fuel for my spirit.
I resonate with that. I'm like that too. That reminded me though too as well. It's interesting. I was listening to a Pete Scazzaro podcast on emotionally healthy preaching as I was getting ready to preach last week, and he was talking about the 8 principles of emotionally healthy preaching. And towards the end, he said something interesting. I never really thought about it like this. He said, if you're a preacher, you should be with Jesus to be with Jesus, not to preach. And when you're preaching for others. He said, but don't ever overlook the beauty and the benefit. Now, this is a little bit more specific to us, but you can apply it other ways. He said, don't ever underestimate the beauty and the benefit you get as someone who is spending all this time mining gold and studying God's word and preparing it, that you get to eat that food too. And that it actually feeds your soul as you're doing it. And I really felt that this week. I felt it for days afterwards. Like, this has been feeding my soul. I shouldn't study God's word just for others, but or you know what I mean. Like, it should be an overflow of my own, but don't underestimate what that's doing for your soul and the privilege of that. And I just think that's true. Yes, that's specific to our profession, but wherever you're at, let's say that you have a loved one who needs encouragement. When you're studying and mining Scripture to encourage them, or maybe leading a small group or helping serve or whatever, whenever you're doing that for others, it has a way. It's kind of like Proverbs. Whoever refreshes another person refreshes themselves. It has a way of feeding you. And a really overlooked one. And this is another area by the grace of God, I want to get better and more intentional and more urgent. But you've heard it said before, a Sunday morning takes on a whole different meaning. And your Christian life takes on a whole different meaning when someone that you've been sharing the grace of Jesus with gets it, or you've brought somebody to church with you that you want to experience the love of Jesus. That has a way of making the whole thing new again. That has a way of making the whole thing fresh again.
That's true. So good.
That's a lot. All right. You know what? Thank you for joining us for this week of the X Podcast. And until next week, we will see you then.